with a full 8 mana bugs. He has 4 Avacyn's Pilgrim, 4 Arbor Elf. And what he's curving into are Loxodon Smiters, Silverblade Paladins, and then it looks like a lot of threats all along the curve. Actually, he has 4 Knight of Glory, he has 3 Thalia, and then he tops out with some Sublime Archangels, a Wolverhearth, a Silverheart, a Sigarda, a Johnny Collar of the Pride Rancor.
All right, so leading out here, Gerry Thompson opens on tapped Glacial Fortress, and then second turn with a Plains. Mike Wisner just on a Forest with no 1-drop. So Gerry will obviously be happy with playing lands here, but Mike's going to lead out on Thalia, a great card against Gerry.
Yeah, that's definitely the 2-drop he wants on turn 2 against Gerry.
And 3-color package out of Gerry with the Steam Vents into play tapped, still no plays, and Mike's going to get a chance to push in some damage.
The aggro deck drops Gerry to 18. Mike definitely wants to do as much damage as possible here. Only 7 non-creatures in his deck. 4 Rancor, 3 a Johnny.
So the question is, how much does this Thalia hurt Gerry's deck when we're looking at the list here?
Well, it looks like it hurts it a lot. I mean, he has 4 Detention Sphere. That's a lot less impressive at 4 mana. He has Syncopate, which any X spell, I mean, automatically gets a lot worse.
Gerry, 4th land, untapped, is an island. He has all his colors. No spells yet. Mike on Thalia and Arbor Elf. Rather slow from Mike. He does have the option, Mike drops Gavoni Township. Mike might drop a Sublime Archangel. Worth noting, sorry, with leading you into this, Gerry's on a 5-card hand here. So it might be, you know, his hand was probably a keep of necessity more than a strategic keep.
Right. And that means Mike really doesn't have to worry about any mass removal. He'd rather just beat Gerry down, not give Gerry the chance to draw into that.
Wolfir Silverheart pairs with Thalia, and Mike will probably quit, would be wise to quit committing to the board here. Yeah, Supreme Verdict out of Gerry. So there is mass removal. For those of you remembering, Supreme Verdict is a Day of Judgment in Azorius colors. So white, blue 1 that is uncounterable.
Yep.
In a deck like Gerry's, it's probably a free roll over Day of Judgment.
Exactly, just strictly better. The 1 Supreme Verdict makes an appearance for Gerry.
Right. Loxodon Smiter comes down for Mike. I'm not sure how much I wonder what his other options were. Because of the Smiter's uncounterability, I'm not sure if I like him running that into a tapped board from Gerry.
Yeah, Mike could have landed a Sublime Archangel instead. Maybe he wants to follow up with that, bash for a little more damage.
Yeah. So what's annoying is that Gerry's deck is really, it's not controlling too much through counter spells. It has 2 Syncopate for counter spells, but that's really it. When I'm looking at the removal spells, I'm seeing he has 2 Tameo, 4 Terminus, the 1 Supreme Verdict, 4 Pillar of Flames, 4 Detention Spheres.
Yep, and there is that Detention Sphere that'll take out the Smiter. And, you know, this really is a Gerry Thompson deck, isn't it?
Right. The irony that Mike now drops a second Loxodon Smiter.
And here we go, that's a Rancor.
Yeah, keep in mind, Detention Sphere is an Oblivion Ring that Oblivion Rings all cards of the same name.
Right. Oh, and that's a Terminus. Terminus from Gerry off the top will bury the Smiter.
For Gerry's hand is 2 more Terminus.
You know, I have to give props to Mike Wisner with that Urza's Legacy Rancor. That is a classy Rancor.
And 3rd Smiter from
3rd Smiter.
Mike Wisner.
Now, if Mike Wisner can ever just land one of these threats, just to ever start connecting, the Gavony Township will make sure you can finish the job. So,
now, what he has to make sure is what he's racing against is that Gerry's playing 3 and Treat the Angels.
Right.
Or 2 Tameos. Those to me seem to be the draws that, if Gerry hits here, could be really devastating for Mike.
Even a Jace Architect of Thought would be great for Gerry.
Gerry's playing the full play set of Architect of Thought.
So, Silverblade Paladin with the Rancor.
Right.
That'll start chunking Gerry if Gerry doesn't do something about it. There's a Detention Sphere.
Yeah, I think for Gerry, he'd love to Terminus 2 creatures on that board, but the biggest problem is that his life total will probably just get a little low if he tries to go for that play.
Right, and then if Mike doesn't drop another creature, he's in even worse shape for himself.
Right. Nearheath Pilgrim out of Wisner. The Nearheath Pilgrim will also get rankered. And Mike passes the turn. Gerry has drawn a Jace Architect of Thought. Now, it's a little dicey for him to try to land that at the moment. Mike already has a 4/1, threatening to be a 5/2 trample just with the Township activation.
Right.
So he can plus the Jace and keep it alive, but it'll go down to 1 with really no commitment on Mike's part.
But he will play it. He will up it. Oh no, he'll minus it looks like.
Remember, the other cards go on the bottom. So that Entreat the Angels will make 2 angels if he gives it to him. The other card is Snapcaster Mage, which is really just another Day of Judgment.
Yes.
So Mike probably will split Entreat with the other, and then the other 2 cards.
I have to think so. That Entreat is just way too powerful at this stage of the game. I don't think Mike can really beat that. He has no way of killing one, let alone multiple angel tokens, except through combat.
Now, interesting choice in Gerry's deck, which we haven't seen yet, is Gerry's playing a full playset of Azorius Charm. Now, Azorius Charm, for a reminder, the modes on it is that it cycles, so it can draw a card, which is probably the reason you can run it in a deck like this. It also can give all of Gerry's creatures lifelink, which in this deck will almost, well, could be used post-Entreat the Angel, I suppose. And
Seems like a little bit of win more, but you never know.
There's situations where it would happen, but probably not of common mode. The last one is to put a attacker on top of the deck. And yep, Mike splits it, Entreat the Angels with land Snapcaster, and Gerry immediately takes the Entreat.
Yep. As expected, and now Mike has to figure out how to beat that and treat the Angels, because that is going to make some Angels next turn.
What he doesn't know is that Gerry has another Terminus. When Mike commits into this board, he's going to put second Ranker on Nearheath Pilgrim, and the question is whether he's going to go. I think he still has to go. He's going to go at Gerry.
Wow. Aggro.
A little aggressive. I'm not a big fan of that play. I think keeping Jace alive is just too dangerous. It really lets Gerry dig back in. But what are your thoughts on this?
I think Mike is playing one way here. He's just really trying to get Gerry's life total to 0. He's halved it that turn, but I think you're right. I think he's about to hit a brick wall here. I don't think he's going to be able to get through these angel tokens plus Jace.
Jace will use his plus ability. I don't know if there's a good name. I want to almost come up with a name for,
Ooh, let's do it. Yeah.
Like for what that ability would be called. Like when Gideon made things attack, I always called it like that's Gideon's taunt ability.
Yeah, perfect.
That's what I called that. But I don't know what name. If you're on Twitter, if you have a great name for what do you I call Gideon when he makes things attack, he's taunting them. What do you feel like is a name, a verb? Something to describe what Jace is doing when he's -1ing stuff.
Mike considers his options here. Now his hand is loaded up with Rancors, but that probably won't end up mattering too much because Gerry is just going to have so much fuel with that Jace.
Right. Avacyn's Pilgrim. Mike will not make another play. He's going to Township here.
Let's see, maybe like Orcish Uniflame?
Or Uniflame.
Something like that. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but that could work.
It's almost like he's Cumberstoning them.
Ooh, nice. Nice. So Jace casts a little mini Factor Fiction, and that is that Azorius Charm in his hand.
Yep. All right, and Entreat the Angels with 2. Okay.
With 2 up. So he'll keep the Azorius Charm mana up. And now Gerry
really
has this
smart.
game locked
Yeah,
up
really
pretty
smart.
much.
So now Gerry has to keep that up so that he can't, he doesn't want to lose to something like Wolfir Silverheart Ranker.
Right.
Which actually wouldn't be enough, but it would be close.
Yeah, either way, Jerry's going to play it super safe. Gerry does not want to lose this game out of nowhere, especially on camera.
Sublime Archangel into play for Mike Wisner. A Ranker goes on Absence Pilgrim. So and another Ranker is going to go on Absence Pilgrim. So it's going to become a 6/2, exalts up to 8/4 trample, going at Gerry. Gerry can just, if he can just block with 1 angel to kill it, and that will drop him to 2. He may block with. Jerry's in an interesting spot here, actually. My guess is that he Azorius Charms the Pilgrim on top of the deck.
I think he'll probably block and then charm the angel because the angel's
just
a little.
To gain 4?
The angel's a little harder to deal with, it seems like. So I think he'll make a trade here.
Okay, and he's going with your play. All right, he's gonna block there, going down, just dropping to 2.
Yep. And 2 is fine. Against a green-white deck, he knows that the green-white deck can't have any reach.
Mountain Bonfire.
Oh man, be brutal.
Just kidding, this is Naya.
I have to give some props to Mike Wisner though, because usually if it's turn 8 like this and
a green-white deck
hasn't won, they're usually dead in the water, but he's putting up a fight.
Typically when there's 4 Wraths in a graveyard of the other guy, a green-white deck is dead.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure Mike Wisner 1-for-1 every single one of those Wraths except the first one, so he's played this game pretty cautiously, pretty well. And he's given himself a chance here.
All right. Knight of Glory drawn by Mike Wisner.
Jace, let's see, Jace can downsize, Jace can distract, Jace can stun, cripple, weak stone. These are all right, but I think when we hear it, we'll know it.
See. All right. Demoralize. I like that one.
So Rancor on the Archangel, and Mike has to know this isn't long for this world.
Oh, yeah. Jerry's staying alive. Mike's at 16, so Gerry needs to find a way to get a couple more swings in here.
Yep.
Mike will just recast the Sublime Archangel.
Yeah, and Mike also...
And Rancor it.
Doing a great job at not drawing a lot of lands, which is something that green-white decks do well, because 2 of them are Gavany Townships. He has 19 lands besides that, which means all these sort of seemingly useless creatures that he draws with the Rancors are pretty
Jerry's
good.
drawn Pillar of Flame. He's out of options. He's going to have to use Jace's minus ability. It's almost like Murmurs from Beyond. The Terminus, I mean, Mike's going to give him the Terminus, which Jerry's going to have to take.
Yep, Terminus number 4. And he'll have to cast it, too.
Yep, Gerry, does he not? He is at 4, 8, 10 mana, which is enough to Desolate Lighthouse and Terminus.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he didn't use the Lighthouse first.
I could definitely, yeah, I would agree.
So we'll see the Terminus here.
Mike doesn't, I mean, the reason you wouldn't do that is to represent a counterspell, but Mike, based on his plays in the past, really isn't respecting a counterspell. Mike can't really play around a counterspell. He's going to probably have to just jam into it.
Right, the counterspell will get a spell at some point anyway.
He'll probably get a spell immediately.
Yeah. And wow, Mike with another Archangel right off the top.
Continuing to draw creatures. Jerry's going to enter Rancor it, so Gerry needs another answer now.
Yep. Activate Lighthouse, and there it is. Discard a land.
All right. He has 2 more draws to find a way to answer.
Yep.
And one of the things I really have, because of Jerry's mulligan and being at such a low life total, one of the things I think has really been defining about this game is that his cards like Terminus and Detention Sphere have only been 1-for-1s because Gerry hasn't been able to afford the opportunity to make them into 2-for-1s.
Right. It seemed like Mike took away so much of his life in the early game that he can't afford to do it, and now he'll use the Lighthouse main phase. See what he draws.
All right, Gerry. So Gerry draws. He has more lands and pillars. Gerry will scoop. Mike Wisner takes game 1.
Packs it in, and you know, that's really a downside of this control deck. He has so many lands in his deck. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. It looks like 26 lands in his deck. Mike has 19.
19. Right, and especially so the green-white deck would do that because really most additional lands are really dead draws in the deck.
Right, exactly. It can't do anything with lands past 4 or 5. And you know, it's pretty interesting to note too that Mike didn't draw any of Johnny's that game, any of his long game victory cards,
right?
Besides the Rancor.
So let's talk a little about sideboarding. You have Jerry's list there. If you're Gerry Thompson in this matchup, do you like the matchup? And if you don't, what would you do to make it better?
Well, I would have thought that I liked the matchup before the match, but after that game, I would not be so sure. I would definitely, let's see here. He has Sundering Growth, Purify the Grave, Supreme Verdict, Dissipate, Negate, Jace, and Geist. None of these are really that impressive. I guess you bring in the rest of the Supreme Verdicts. He'll probably want to overload on Wrath effects, as we saw that game. They'll often just be 1-for-1s.
The 4 Pillar of Flames to me seemed bad in this matchup, but they have somewhat of a decent number of things they can hit. But especially the one that was trapped in Jerry's hand at the end of the game really didn't seem to pull weight.
Right.
Would you consider sliding some of them out?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you'd want them against the Elf Bird type of decks, but at the same time, if you're just overloading on Wraths like Jerry's deck is, I don't think you really want them. It sort of says that Jerry's deck maybe is not that tested. I bet you Jerry's concentrating on Modern and really just kind of threw this one together, threw up this brew, because a lot of the cards seem a little almost sloppily chosen here.
For a control deck, there certainly are a lot of 4s.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think I could agree with you on. So I'm going to go over to Mike's deck here. So I'm thinking about Mike's game plan is that he's got to assume that every card in Jerry's hand is a Wrath or something that could potentially 2-for-1 him. So if I were to describe how that last game worked and why I thought Mike played it really well, is that Mike was able to, in the late game, never get 2-for-1s, which to me seems really important because he really can't afford to be 2-for-1 with the way this matchup works out. So what he can do is he needs to land like 1 quality threat and continue to push with that quality threat and force Gerry to not be able to 2-for-1 him So he's going to need quick early damage and then consistent big threats. So I love Rancor in the matchup. He does have a Sigarda, Host of Herons main deck, which is great. When I'm looking at his sideboard, there's only one card that really sticks out to me that I really want, and that's a Garruk Primal Hunter. When I said about landing one quality threat each turn, that card just seems tailor-made for doing that.
That guy is a big game.
Right. Gerry, obviously, with the 4 Detention Spears, has answers, but I mean, Gerry's control, Gerry should have answers to just about anything.
Right, and even if he does cast the Sphere, Mike will have gotten at least one use out of it, one beast, or will have drawn a lot of cards.
I would actually also like to bring in, and I don't know if Mike will do this, Mike has 2 Thragtusk in his sideboard. I would like to bring in the 1 Garruk and 2 Thragtusks, and the card I'd like to cut is all of the Silverblade Paladins. For the reason that I don't think Silverblade Paladin is a card that demands that you commit to the board to make it good, and I think that's just exactly what Mike doesn't want to be doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. How about the 2 Oblivion Ring? Those are pretty good answers to the Detention Sphere and Jace.
They are actually, and when you think about that, one of the ways Gerry pulls ahead is Tamiyo will be an amazing card in this matchup.
Right.
I think that's actually one of the cards that to me seems key to Gerry's deck, because Tamiyo forces 2-for-1s. So Oblivion Ring, sure, I could get behind the Oblivion Ring. I might actually like it over a card like Ajani. Even though Planeswalker is typically good against control, I think Ajani is not well suited in this matchup. He doesn't actually make a threat. He's only a threat in himself of ultimating, which I guess is pretty good, but
it's definitely not something that Gerry can't work around.
No, I mean, in Ultimate, Gerry, all his cards should even answer an Ajani Ultimate.
Right. So here we go. The 2 players pretty much shuffled up. You see Mike Wisner on the right, Gerry Thompson on the left. If you're just joining us, I'm Zach Hall. He's Matthias Hunt.
Yeah.
It's about the 3rd time I've said that wrong already. And we're coming to round 1. Star City Games open here in Cincinnati.
Mike Wisner going to 6 cards. He's on the draw this game. He took game 1. Gerry mulled to 5. Made a pretty good game of it. For those of you joining the recap, Mike pushed in a lot of early damage. Gerry was able to stabilize off a mull to 5 with the Wrath, but then was forced to basically burn every Wrath he had as soon as Mike played a creature. And eventually Mike had more creatures than Gerry had Wraths, was able to push enough for the win.
Yeah, and it was almost amazing how long Gerry was able to make that game go. He went through 4 Terminus, 1 Supreme Verdict, and it still wasn't
And 2
enough.
Detention Spheres.
And 2 Detention Spheres.
So
crazy. That's the power of Rancor, though.
Rancor makes like I said, I love Rancor in this matchup. Rancor makes every creature into a must-kill.
Exactly. I mean, we saw the Avacyn's Pilgrim suit up with 2 Rancors. All of a sudden, Gerry has to do something about it. He has no time.
So Gerry leads on a tapped Steam Vents. Mike will have a turn 1 play, and it's Avacyn's Pilgrim. He looks to have a pretty good curve, and he has sided in the Thragtusk.
Yeah, very nice. So Gerry just says go.
Turn 2 Glacial Fortress. Sun Petal Grove from Mike Wisner. And he's going to try to accelerate into something here. Remember, he has to be careful not to put too much out on the board here. Gerry's sure to have at least 1 Wrath in his hand.
Right.
Mike wisely, I agree, attacks for 1 with Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yep. Plink it in. Oh, wow, there it is.
Charm it on top of his deck.
It's interesting. They haven't made many cards that put things on top recently. It seems like Memory Lapse was one of the last ones, and that was such a frustrating card to play against.
The last blue-white spell I remember doing that is Aether Toe.
Ooh, yeah, Aether Toe did that. So that is a Near Hearth Paladin from Mike Wisner.
Or Near the Pilgrim, it's the lifelink.
Sorry, not Pilgrim, Paladin.
And Gerry's going to immediately Detention Spirit. Interesting play. I actually... It's a curious play. I think what Gerry's trying to do is he has a Jace in his hand, and he's really trying to clear. He wants to clear the way to stick the Jace. In case you're wondering why he would Oblivion Ring what is essentially a Goblin Piker.
Right. And wow, he draws a Tamiyo too, so he'll be able to go 4 or 5 Planeswalker here.
Right, Tamiyo, Jace, and then his last card is a Wrath.
Wow.
I think great situation for Jace. All right, Jace is gonna plus, so we have
Demoralize.
Let's
see. We have Demoralize, Jace stumbles, Jace downsizes. I like Jace downsize. It's not bad.
But there's a card in the set called Downsize, isn't there? It's -4, -0.
Okay, maybe that one.
I like it too. Keep your so Mike makes a Thragtusk. Tamiyo's going to come down and tap down the Thragtusk. And here's why Tamiyo, I think, the best card for Gerry in this matchup.
Oh yeah, it just laughs at Rancor. It laughs at all these big creatures.
Gerry quickly says, no, you can't untap the Thragtusk.
No, buddy. That's tapped. Mike Wisner, though, not out of this game. He has a Sublime Archangel, a Rancor, and it looks like, a Township. That'll be a threat going late.
Yeah, I like Downsize, but Downsize is an overload card out of the current set.
Yeah.
Sublime Archangel comes down from Mike Wisner, and his last card, a Rancor on the Absence Pilgrim. I think Gerry has a Wrath in his hand here. And he's going to attack 4/5 at the Tamiyo. He's going to be able to get it.
Wow. So Tamiyo down.
Tamiyo down. Great. And that added up really nicely for Gerry. Or for Mike. He was able to get that Tamiyo off the board.
So Gerry, looking at his top card, it is a Miracle card. It wasn't Entreat, chose not to cast it. That's interesting. Probably just wants to Terminus this turn.
It was, yeah, casting Entreat, not that relevant for him.
No. This means...
what Mike doesn't know is that what Gerry actually wants out of this hand is the land.
Right.
So the reveal off Jace is Detention Sphere Detention Sphere Plains Terminus.
Now, if I'm Mike Wisner, I'm not sure how I split this here. Because Gerry tanked on his upkeep, or rather during his draw phase, because he was, and if you're Mike Wisner, most people in this room, you don't have to think about the bluff, but with Gerry, I think you do.
So Gerry immediately snap takes one with land and Terminus is out of hand.
Yep.
So Mike will get the Rancor and the Thragtusk token, so Jace is going to go down here. Gerry, with another Jace in his hand, is aware of this. Todd Anderson walking by here, our current Star City Invitational champion. On his way, he won his first round, so
very nice.
Batting well here.
Yep, there's that beast from Mike, and that'll certainly take down the Jace.
And Mike has drawn a Sublime Archangel, which is excellent here. I would probably not commit it to the board.
No, I don't see any reason to do that, especially with Gerry only having gone through one Wrath.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Excellent.
Mike Wisner playing this one a little cagey. I like it.
I
like his line.
I like how he's playing this game a lot.
Gerry considers his options here. Has to deal with this beast before he can really start abusing that Jace. Because of the Township, that means the beast can have 5 power. But no, there we go.
Alright, so he's gonna Jace -2 it. He gets into a Pillar of Flame and 2 lands. Not too much to work with.
Yep, probably really hoping to hit an Azorius Charm there.
Well, I think he's going to take the land. Once again, he needs to get a land. He has a Detention Sphere in hand.
Yep, so Mike Wisner splits land spell versus land, and that's really smart of him. I think most people would automatically just...
Gerry takes 2 off the Steam Vents, Detention Spheres, the Beast token. Has to keep that Jace alive.
Yep. So there we go, that's the second Detention Sphere of the game. And Mike, still drawing gas. That looked to be a Thalia. To go with his Sublime Archangel. Yep, there's the Archangel. And he'll land a Rancor on it while he still can. Making a threat that just has to be dealt with, again, all on its own.
Alright, and off the top, he's going to Miracle and Entreat the Angels. And that is for 20 power worth of Angels. The game will turn around, and he's just going to race. -1 to... He's going to... Yes, he's gonna. Let's say Weak Stone with the Jace.
Weak Stone. Jace will Weak Stone.
Yeah, we'll go with. I like that one. It's because the Weak Stone actually is an art. Says all attacking creatures get -1/-0.
Yeah.
Weak Stone.
And thank you to Stan Bessie for that one. The Weak Stone comment.
All right, five angels in play versus 1 angel on the other side.
Yep, and Mike Wisner is 2 swings away from death here. At 25 life, he's going to be hard-pressed to stop this.
Yeah, Mike, with no real ways in his deck to clear the board of of angel tokens, I think he's drawing dead here.
Yeah, he has no mass removal in his sideboard. He has nothing to kill tokens. This is not a card he prepared for.
Right, Gerry swinging with 5 angel tokens.
Crashes in.
Gerry actually with another Entreat in his hand. Obviously not necessary. And double Pillar of Flame as well.
It looks like Mike just takes the damage. Gerry will just keep stocking up his hand.
Jace will draw. And that'll get a concession from Mike Wisner. So, going to game 3.
Here we go, game 3. Gerry Thompson takes game 2, evens up the match. Mike, though, on the play for game 3. How important do you think that is?
Being on the play, well, like I said before, I really think that Mike's ability to get quick damage in is pretty important in this matchup. To really make it so that he needs to put Gerry on the back foot so that all of Gerry's cards are worse on the back foot. So I would go something like that. Being on the play will help him there, certainly.
I don't think it's as huge in this sort of aggro control matchup as it used to be. Because it used to really be that the aggro decks really, really wanted to just flood the board, kill them before they either found that Wrath or had the mana to cast it. But this matchup plays out a little differently. And I really like the way Mike Wisner built his deck here. He sort of built it with a lot of resiliency to Wraths.
Right. I mean, well, this is about as good as a white-green aggro deck against, an 8 Wrath deck can really hope to be. This is a matchup I think that traditionally would favor a deck like Gerry's.
For sure.
Now,
I was really impressed that Mike won game 1.
When Mike's on the play, what he's really hoping to see is a Thalia in his opening hand.
Yeah, that card is a house against Gerry.
Right, because remember, barring miracles, Gerry can't sweep the board until turn 4. So, that can push Gerry all the way back to turn 5, maybe Detention Sphere turn 4, but
Sure.
He can really backfoot Gerry with Thalia, and that's probably one of the key cards, I would say, going into this third game.
Exactly, and especially if Mike does have that aggro Thalia draw, if Gerry is forced to cast a turn 4 Detention Sphere, a turn 5 Wrath, well, it's kind of playing into Mike's hands because he has to cast the Sphere on a 2/1, he has to cast the Wrath probably for a mana creature and one other guy, not really using his spells how he would want to be.
Certainly.
So I expect Mike to aggressively mulligan to a draw here, to an aggro draw. I would if I was him.
All right, both players dealing out. Gerry looks to have a hand. Pillar of Flames, Sulphur Falls, not able to see all the other cards in it. Mike with a couple Absence Pilgrims and a couple Rankers. I don't know if I see a land in his grip. Looks like there's a Plains there.
Plains, yep.
No green source, so he's gonna have to ship that. With the green source, what do you think about a hand, say single forest, double Ranker, double Absence Pilgrim? Like, dislike?
Wow, it's really risky.
What if if I turn your forest into a Temple Garden, does that matter?
Snap keep for sure. Just the fact that if you draw another green source, you can attack for 5 on turn 2. That's huge. The downside is Pillar of Flame, but you know what? Gerry doesn't have a Pillar of Flame. All in, swing, go, aggro.
I'm still not convinced that I think Abyssin's Pilgrim to me is a card that Mike doesn't really want to see in this matchup.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that during sideboarding. I was thinking, can Mike actually afford to side any of his mana creatures out? And I think the answer is no, just because of his low land count. But I bet he wishes he could for sure.
They're not great. So a turn 1 force on Mike. Nothing behind it. He has his Primal Hunter in his hand. He also has a Luxton Smiter. He's gonna make a turn 2 Plains, no play. So this is playing into Gerry's hands pretty well.
Yeah, although Gerry does have a lot of lands, it looks like. He has Azorius Charm, he has Terminus, he has a Planeswalker. Not sure which one it was. Tameo.
Smiter will come down to play around to Syncopate.
Yep.
I don't know if Mike had another option there. He does have a Silverblade Paladin, but he has no more mana sources right now.
And Gerry opting not to Azorius Charm that to the top of Mike's deck. He knew he had no play on 3, so he figures might as well do that in response. Oh, no, can't
Ranker
do
the Smiter, and now this is where the Azorius Charm is really good.
Yep.
It's gonna double time lock Mike. And it really gives Gerry, I believe, it gives him an opening to cast
there
Jace.
It is. Jace
and
right off the
that's
top.
Really rough for him. He'll draw with a Jace.
Yep, he'll just start working his Jace.
So would you say this, and you can say this is a Murmurs from Beyond, you can say it's a mini Fact or Fiction?
I like Fact or Fiction myself.
Yeah.
I like that comparison. Truth or Tale? You make
Truth or Tale.
Truth or Tale?
Truth or Tale was a strange card in that it felt like Fact or Fiction until you played with it and you realized it was nothing like Fact or Fiction.
Right, and then you realized that it was way worse.
So mini Fact or Fiction from Jace.
And Mike wants to split those into 3 piles, but no.
Sulphur Falls,
Sorry,
Tension
buddy.
Spear, Snapcaster
Can't
Mage.
do that.
All of them are really strong here. I think Mike not hitting that 4th land drop really hurting him. Gerry gets the Tension Sphere and the Sulphur Falls and bins the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, I think Gerry would have taken any 2 cards there, no matter how Mike split that. I think he was getting 2.
Right. This turn 5, Gerry's got Tamio.
Wow.
Tamio's an option. So he's gonna weak stone with the Jace, and land comes down. And
Wow.
Tamio locks down the Smiter. This is looking pretty good for Mr. Thompson.
2 big blue planeswalkers against a mana light Mike Wisner. Not looking good for Mike here.
Fourth land, it's a forest, still can't make any plays.
Now, if he can land that Thrag Tusk, he'll at least have a threat. But at the same time, Gerry's hand is just going to get more and more stocked here.
Well, he's going to Detention Sphere the Smiter so that he can now lock down the planes.
Wow.
Jace will let weak stone. Both planeswalkers building up toward ultimate. Gerry doesn't really need to make any more plays other than lands.
No, he has all the cards he needs in his hand. Terminus in case things get really hairy, and he just wants to end this game as soon as possible.
Arbor Elf comes down from Mike Wisner. Arbor Elf will get a Rancor. Sure.
Gerry does not care about that.
Nope.
And wow, a Miracle, a Terminus.
Terminus opts not to Miracle it, so he's just going to Pillar the Arbor Elf.
Arbor Elf removed from the game, Rancor back to the hand.
6th land down for Gerry. He's going to use both Planeswalkers. Jace will weak stone. Tamio will tap down a Plains.
And Gerry very much an autopilot right now.
Right.
He knows he has this game locked up. Mike knows he has this game locked up.
That Tamio's at 7, by the way. There we go. Helpful.
I think the judge heard you.
A pass, no play by Mike Wisner.
Oh, Desperate Lighthouse. Wow.
That's a Lighthouse there, so he's going to mini Factor Fiction from Jace into 3 lands. Mike will split them 2 lands and 1 land. Gerry will take the 2.
Gerry tanks a second. Yep, take the 2.
Do I want a Clifftop Retreat? Or not? Tamio locks on land. Tamio is threatening to go ultimate next turn.
And Mike will see one more card here, it looks like.
Play Arbor Elf.
Rancor's Arbor Elf. And if I'm Gerry, I think I'd just show him my hand right now. Oh.
You don't need
yeah,
to. Okay.
Shows him the Entreat the Angels.
Yeah, not going to cast yet. He now has a Tamio emblem. Gerry, with 9 lands in play, has the ability to make 3 Angels every turn for the rest of the game if he chooses. It's probably not the correct play. It's probably best to still just wrath the board a bunch. I don't really think it matters which way Gerry plays it.
No, I think Gerry could play this one blindfolded. He could choose his cards at random here. Would still win this one. Generally, wrathing every turn is good against green-white.
Mike looking at his hand. Sublime Archangel, Thrag Tusk, Garruk Primal Hunter, all cards that don't matter here. Azorius Charm. Yeah, Azorius Charm, Arbor Elf. That's gets a concession from Mike Wisner. Gerry Thompson defeats Mike Wisner 2 games to 1.
Yep, just another amateur under Gerry Thompson's boot heel. He's done this a lot before. How many opens has he top-8'd now?
Quite a few. Would have to look that one up.
So many. At least 10, at least 15. Probably closer to 20.